Good morning.
Hello.
See how I caught you there?
That was mean.
I know.
Normally he's like, you good? You
What
ready?
I do. It's been a awesome week. We've had so much fun.
It's been super cool.
Probably the highlight of our week was Sunday. We have church Sunday, and then we had 6 people being baptized, and we baptized in the ocean. So that's always an experience. We obviously never really know what the ocean's going to be like when you go to baptize. And so you're just like hoping and praying, calm waves, like everything's fine.
It looked really calm on Sunday as we approached the ocean.
And the water was so blue. And then we get out there to do baptisms, and all of a sudden waves just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So we go to baptize Deanna, one of the ladies that has started to come to our church, and a wave literally comes up over all our heads before we can even do the baptism.
Yeah, we were soaking wet, salt water in the eyes.
So sometimes I baptize him, sometimes God does. He took his turn on Sunday with a couple of people. So
And this was our first time we ever lost a child in the ocean.
yeah.
The wave went through, and all of a sudden we were like, where'd he go?
No,
He went right back into shore. We had to go get him and bring him back out.
Well, we were kind of helping people out. Mm-hmm. So we baptized at least 2 of us, every person, because it's the ocean. And we typically will help the people out. And it was very apparent Noah did not want any help getting out there. And that was a mistake.
Yeah, he
went for a ride.
Yeah.
So
it was pretty interesting.
I felt bad. I was like, "What? Where is he?" And then he popped up. I'm like, "Okay, he's good."
It was a moment of panic.
I'm like, "Are we done? Do we have to we still do this?" Or?
Yeah, we still have to do it.
Okay.
And then we had the rest of the day where we just ate with our church family and just hung out on the beach as a family, and it was so fantastic. It was great. However, I'm still recovering from the sunburn. Yours is almost gone.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
He was really burnt.
Yeah, but the temperature was great. You know, there was a little bit of a cool breeze. The water's kind of cool, so you really didn't realize how long you were out in the sun.
Yeah, I think we were out there for around 5 hours, and none of us put sunscreen on. Well, Violet did, but the rest of us didn't, and we got fried.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
And I got my cousin coming in today, Trevor, so
yeah, it's going to be cool.
we're kind of getting some ideas to give him a nice Florida experience with the beach and some springs and gators. Yeah, so it'll be a good time.
Yep.
And today we're going to talk about, how ironic is this? We're going to talk about silence.
I know nothing of this.
You don't. I'll talk about it in the podcast, but I was having a conversation with Rusty about this actually yesterday. And I didn't know this is what we're going to be talking about, but this is funny.
Every single week we talk about what we're going to talk about the next week.
I know. I don't think about it or remember. I'm a person who, until it's time to do something, I don't think about it at all. So my cousin is coming in today. I didn't know until last night when I was supposed to pick him up or from where. I don't need to know that right now. So
yeah, we're very different people.
But what I do need to know right now is it's time to get this episode started.
It's time.
I hope you guys have had a great week. Love to hear about some of the fun things you're doing this summer, the memories that you're making. Remember, you only got 18 summers with your kids, so at least while they're in the house. So use it wisely and take advantage of every opportunity. But I'd love to hear about it. And as soon as she's done yawning, I don't know what it is about podcasting that you just have to yawn.
Because I do that too sometimes when I sit and talk to people. And I'm like, I'm not yawning because I'm bored.
You're so bored. She's like, I'm not talking.
No, I don't sit very often.
Yeah.
You know that's true. I haven't even had a drink of coffee because it's too hot.
Constantly.
I'm opening this cup. This lid is coming off.
Oh, geez. This could be thousands of dollars worth of mistake.
But it's worth it for a cup of coffee.
No, it isn't.
At what cost?
Yeah.
I'm feeling weird today. All right, let's do this, baby. Go ahead.
You're feeling weird because you know you're going to have to be silent. You know this is something you're working on.
I wrote that in the podcast.
Yeah. All right, you ready?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to try to drink my coffee
on the
podcast.
I don't know. You swallow pretty loud.
You love it when I do that.
I know. I
drink my coffee on the podcast.
I do not like that at all. Okay, here we go.
And
You ready?
Go.
Okay. Okay. What am I supposed to say? Oh, yeah. I scroll too far. If it's not on the screen, I don't know what to say.
This is a very bad omen of how this podcast is going to go.
Gather around, everybody. It's time for a family meeting. The Family Meeting is a show that's all about family relationships. We're the Osterkamps. I'm Thomas. This is my wife, Gulper. Gulp, gulp.
You got me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you know it. You can hear the sound.
I know, and now I don't know how to drink without it. Hello, and welcome to our family. Welcome to episode 197 of the Family Meeting Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk about silence in marriage and how to be comfortable with it, and also how to break the silence to achieve deeper intimacy. We're going to talk about companionable silence.
I don't know if you can be silent long enough to have a conversation about this.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this, so I can't teach anyone how to be quiet.
So I meet with my executive pastor on Tuesdays. We go out to Dominic's Deli, and that's where we have our meetings at. And we were talking about, first of all, about worship practice. We don't have our own facilities. For those that aren't aware, we lead a beachside community church together, and we meet in a local high school. We don't have our own facility, so worship practice is at Rusty's house. And my youngest daughter, Violet, is joining the worship team. And so she goes to practice. Most of the team has been together for years. They're very comfortable with each other. And so they are comfortable with silence. And a lot of them are introverts. So they're okay with silence. And so Violet comes in, and she's new to the whole group with everybody being there. And they're like sitting there just kind of waiting for, I think they were waiting for the drummer to come. And everybody's just quite quiet. And Violet's sitting in the chair, and she's not tall enough. Her feet don't, so she's kind of kicking her feet, and she's like, so, like breaking the silence. He's like, she is a little Lysandra. And I'm like, yeah, Lysandra can't handle silence.
Yeah.
Like if I stop talking on my time to talk, Lysandra will jump in.
Yeah, I'll fill that silence.
Probably pretty quickly. So
It's true.
Yeah, he was just talking about how Violet is kind of like a little Lysandra with that.
She's a little Lysandra in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I have to tell her to chill.
No. But no, he thought it was funny.
Yeah, it is funny.
But we were less than 2 weeks away from Relationship Refresh. Mm-hmm. So
That's exciting.
registration's coming in. You can get your tickets now. FamilyMeeting.org/shop. Hit the shop button at the top right of the page, and you can get your tickets there. We're gonna be having a good conversation about the fact that we need to talk. Mm-hmm. So get your tickets now.
Okay, have you ever been in a situation where you're with a friend or acquaintance and the conversation has a lull and it's super awkward, and you're just thinking, okay, what can I talk about? What questions can I ask? This is so awkward. Think of something. Anything.
So it for me, it depends on, like, if it's somebody I don't really know, then that gets awkward. But if it's somebody I know, like, well, I don't mind sitting, I can sit in silence and it doesn't bother me. Even if I know them somewhat well. So, like, we had our men's father-son cookout a few weeks ago. And there's one of the guys in our church, Chris, and he's there with his kids, and he's much like me. Mm-hmm. And so we can just kind of sit there just together in each other's presence, and we're totally fine. Like, we don't have to fill every second with noise.
If you came up on two moms at a picnic, sitting at a picnic table, and neither of them were talking,
you'd think they were mad.
Something is drastically wrong.
Somebody's mad, yeah.
Something's wrong. That does not happen. Or if it does happen, yeah, it's not a good sign. But, I feel like everyone has been in this situation. where the silence is so uncomfortable and you're
Yeah.
just trying to think of what can I say?
Yep.
How can I break the silence? It's so awful. And oftentimes silence can be deafening. And we're going to talk in a little bit about the silent treatment.
What's the dumbest thing you ever just like tried to fill silence with?
Oh man, I've done it so many times, all the time, constantly. I just say stupid stuff about myself. I tell people like intimate things about myself and just stupid stuff.
Like how you play games in bed?
Yeah, I did say that one time. I was like, we don't go to bed early. Well, we go to bed early, but we don't actually sleep. We play games in bed. And this was like at church to a bunch of people, and my husband's like, "Stop talking!"
Because you were literally talking to people literally sitting right behind me, and I'm like, "Are you serious? Did you just say that?"
Well, and I saw all of them.
And I'm like, "Where are these games?"
I noticed that all of the people like had a weird grin, and I was like, I just said something. What did I just say? And I was like, oh, I see how that could have sounded. Yeah. But anyway, that was one of the, but I say stupid stuff all the time. Actually, if any of you have ever had a conversation with me, you can recall probably several of those times. It happens often. And silence can be uncomfortable, but there is a season in marriage where silence can become comfortable and even enjoyable. This is companionable silence. It's familiar, it's comfortable, and it's relaxing. It's beautiful, actually. It's being present without expectations. I think a lot of times when you're present with someone, there's an expectation that goes with that.
Sure. Yeah.
What are we going to do? What are we going to talk about? What's the plan? Whatever. And when you can be present with someone and nobody has any expectations, that is relief. It is refreshing. It's relaxing. It's comfortable. And it's really beautiful.
Yeah, and especially for those of us who aren't into the small talk conversations.
Yeah.
Like it can be a lot of pressure, but when you get to a point where you know somebody enough or you're comfortable enough, like we don't have to do all that. Mm-hmm. Like we can just be together and that's good. It's a nice thing. And it says a lot about the level of the relationship that you're at.
Yes, it does.
But it does remind me of these verses in Ecclesiastes. In chapter number 3, and you probably know this from the song. I'm trying. Who sang the song?
Turn,
yeah.
turn. There is a
yes.
turn,
so that one.
Turn. Is it like Peter, Paul, and Mary or somebody like way back then?
You're thinking of Mary Tyler Moore. That's a TV show.
It's like a really old group, like 70s.
really,
60s?
Really old group.
Are you going to look it up right here on
funny.
the podcast?
Yeah, I have to.
Who sang it?
I don't know.
Okay. We're going to have silence on the podcast because we're very comfortable with you. And he's going to look up this song.
The Byrds.
The Byrds?
Yep, The Byrds.
I've heard of them.
Byrds. Like, okay. I know I've heard the song a bunch. I just didn't know who sang.
Like, I like their sound, actually. I like the song.
So probably you may not even know this from the Bible. That's actually where it came from. Some of you might be like, what? They got that from the Bible? I thought they wrote that. No. But in Ecclesiastes chapter number 3, it says this: for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. That's a conversation we had to have with our daughters when they're dating. Mm-hmm. Time to embrace, time to refrain from embracing.
Amen.
You know, we've all seen those couples that are a little
too much PDA,
a little too close in public.
You know what? You are that couple, not we, but you.
No,
yes.
I'm not.
When you spank your wife at church,
that's fine.
You're the one. You're the one that
we're
people
not.
are
I'm not
thinking of.
making out with you at church and like groping you.
Yeah, thank God.
So maybe this Sunday we'll see. But time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to tear and a time to sow. And notice this in verse number 7. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. And so even Solomon here talks about the fact that, hey, there is a time to keep silent. Like silence is okay. Then there's a time to speak. And we don't have to fill every moment of our time with somebody with some sort of audible noises that we call speech. And then of course he finishes up time to love, time to hate, time for war, and a time for peace. But we want to focus in on that phrase in verse 7, time to keep silence. How do you feel about that when you hear that?
I think it's really, really true. It's also very difficult for me. I don't really like silence. Even when I'm just driving in the car by myself, I like to have the radio on. But I'm actually changing. So this is something I should tell you about.
Okay.
Because this is new and I've noticed this lately. There are times when I will turn off the radio if I'm driving alone and I will pray. I've never done that my whole life. Like I always pray while I'm driving, but I usually still have the radio, like the worship songs in the background.
Yeah.
But I have lately wanted that noise gone, to have quiet while I pray, which is not my norm.
Yeah, but you're like 40.
I'm 39. I'm in my early 30s.
So you're changing.
I'm changing, yeah. I think that I'm becoming that old person who's okay with silence.
Like, turn it down.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm the person. It's the week of 4th of July, and so I'm the person now. I'm the old person now who hates the fireworks going off in the background.
Yeah, exactly. Like, come on.
Time for silence, though, and a time to speak.
Yeah, but this is good for me to keep in mind that there is a season to keep silent, because I talk and I talk a lot.
Amen.
Yes. I am one of those people who feels the need to fill every silence. It's true. And that usually ends up with me putting my foot in my mouth or saying something very, very stupid. So last night we had all of our youth group at our house. So we had 30 teenagers here, which gets really loud and tight. We have a good sized house for it, but you can feel like there's a lot of people here. And as they are trickling in, it's always awkward. You know, teenagers are awkward anyway. But there's this one boy, he's the 13 or 14, and then there were probably 12 girls. And he's waiting, and there are other boys who are going to come, but there's a lot of girls. And so he's just sitting there, and everybody's all awkward, you know. So I come in the room, and I was like, oh, man, you're the only boy here. I won't say his name. I was like, you're the only boy here. You're holding up the fort all by yourself. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, well, look at it this way. You get your choice of any one of these girls to be your girlfriend. And everybody's like, you know, it starts laughing and it got so uncomfortable. And then everybody like stopped laughing and just like looked at the floor. No one wanted to look at anybody.
You made it weird.
Awkward. I made it so weird. And I was like, my gift, and I told the teenagers this, I was like, my gift is walking into a room and making everybody feel really uncomfortable and weird. And so then they laughed again. But that is my gift. I will come in and I will say something that makes everybody awkward and uncomfortable and makes me sound very weird. But it's because I can't stand the silence. Like, I was in the kitchen getting the meal ready, and I noticed in the living room that they're all sitting there quietly. Like, I had to come in and break the silence in the living room from the kitchen. That's who I am. So obviously I have a problem with this.
Well, and you've been that way your entire life.
Yeah.
And so I am a person who's okay with silence, and especially in the morning. Like, it takes me a little bit to get going. And I know we've talked about this on the podcast before, but Lysandra wakes up and she is ready to go. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there were times where I'd have to be like, hey, can you just not in the morning?
Well, here, I want to wake up and I want to be like, okay, so for the day, we have this, and this. Make sure at this time you're ready to go here. Like, I'm ready to, like, let's do this. And I didn't know that. How many years? It was at that camp out, that church camp out. Remember, we were walking to the bathroom together from our tent.
Yeah.
And that was when you finally told me, in the morning, I need you to be quiet for 20 minutes. I need 20 minutes of silence in the morning. And that was all I needed to hear.
That was me being gracious.
Yeah, that was. But how many years? We had probably been married 8 to 10 years before you said that. And when you said that, it was like, oh, okay. That makes sense now because he's never very nice in the morning. And then, that was what I needed to hear.
I'm like, just give me a couple minutes.
Yeah.
And at night, it's like at night, you're the exact opposite.
Right.
And so at night, you're kind of done with everything.
Yeah.
And so that's literally when you get quiet. You're about to fall asleep.
Exactly.
If she stops talking, she's either angry or she's sleepy.
But I can say this. I am very comfortable sitting in silence around Thomas. We often will sit in silence. And it's lovely. Like, I really, truly love it. There are times when we will sit we have an oversized chair in our living room, and we'll sit there together and each be reading or scrolling Facebook or doing nothing.
We'll have
nothing.
sweet silence, and then she'll watch some sort of reel or something on her phone at full blast out of nowhere.
Accident. Yeah, that's definitely my toxic trait.
One of them.
But no, thanks. I am working, though, on being okay with silence outside of my marriage. Although I feel like in our marriage, I'm definitely very comfortable with silence.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do love it when we can just sit in silence together. Mm-hmm. It definitely happens a lot more now than it used to. Mm-hmm. But we'll often exchange glances. And if you're old enough, you remember this song, you say it best when you say nothing at all.
Yeah.
I'm not old enough to remember this song.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't know that song?
Sing it. What is it?
Gosh, I'm not good at singing without like music. I can't do it right now. I'm too nervous. I'm gonna sing it wrong.
What is it? I don't know the song.
Well,
I'm not old enough.
you are. Oh, are you kidding?
No, I'm not
really
kidding.
not know this song?
I have no idea what songs, and I know a lot of songs. So I have no idea what it is. But speaking without words happens when you know the person so well, you can see what they're thinking through their eyes. And this is something like we have when you know somebody well enough. And there's times where I can just look at Lysandra and I know, like, okay, she's angry. She wants sexy time. Like, you just know through her eyes. It's usually not the latter. Words aren't necessary to communicate, and it's just peaceful. And that's when you know you've arrived at a sweet spot in your relationship, where you can both sit in silence together. It's not awkward. It's not uncomfortable. It's just home.
Yeah, I love it. I am thankful for those times that we can sit in silence. And your spouse needs to know that you're there with them. It's not just about what you're doing, what you're saying, activities, things happening. It's about being there with them. And there are times when your spouse may be going through something difficult and they don't need to hear you say anything. They don't need to hear you how to fix their problem, their relationship issue, their sorrow over loss.
Yeah.
They just need you to be there with them. Be quiet. Companionable silence is to sit together without the need to speak. You know the need, right? The need to speak is when you've just met someone and you're trying to keep the conversation going so that it doesn't get awkward. You need to speak. But when you're so comfortable with your spouse and you're so close and intimate, you can sit and there's no pressure. I think that's what it is. It's the absence of pressure where you don't need to speak. You don't always need to fill the silence with background noise like TV or radio, Pandora, Spotify, podcasts, whatever. Because a lot of times that's what's going on. It's like, yeah, we're sitting in silence, like we're not talking, but we're watching TV. We're listening to the radio. We've got a podcast on. We're not against podcasts.
No.
But there are times when it's good just to sit in silence. So this is what I want you to try with your spouse. Just try sitting in silence together. Try just sitting there. Maybe both of you are reading. Pray. Have a time where you're going to sit together. You're each going to pray quietly in your own heart. Rest. Just rest together. This is like gone in our society.
If you have toddlers, good luck with any of this.
You're going to have to do it between the hours of 9 and 6 a.m.
That's
your
called
only
sleeping.
option. No, you stop. You choose not to sleep, and you do this instead. We were just somewhere where like I was watching this poor mother chase her toddler around, and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that's not me anymore.
We were sitting in silence for 8 hours together. Well, mostly you were snoring, but
Funny. Okay. There is, though, a depth that can come from this practice. There's like a depth of your relationship that can come from the practice of just being quiet together. When you can share that comfortable silence with your spouse, it's a really positive achievement in a relationship. I feel like you've kind of arrived at the next level when you can do this.
yeah. So she's
Go ahead, love.
written a quote in here she wants me to say by somebody's name I cannot even begin to read.
I literally was like, well, I'm giving this line to Thomas.
Jeez. Comfortable silences between a couple can be as important as a good conversation, says Mahezabin Dordai, clinical psychologist.
I think you did a good job.
Now, if I didn't make such a big deal of it, you would have thought I knew that name. But
I think you probably did it right.
it's practice from reading all those Bible names every Sunday. It's like you just pretend like you know how to say it.
Yeah.
And everybody will believe it. But here's what they say, because I don't know if this is a man or a woman with that name.
I do not know.
This is what they say. In this busy, chaotic world, there is always the pressure of having to make conversations and do something all the time. But when you're able to sit together and spend time without having the urge to fill every moment with words, it indicates a deeper level of understanding, intimacy, and trust. And the quote continues, but I just want to highlight that trust thing. Because you really have to it show a lot of trust just to be silent. Like, I don't need to say anything, I can just be in your presence.
Yeah.
Mahezabin continues. It allows partners to appreciate each other's presence. It's a positive attribute that can deepen the connection and understanding between two people. And so one of the things we want you to stop and just to think about is your relationship okay with silence? Now, we've got certain friends that I just know they're okay with silence, like Mike and Nikki.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they're okay with silence. They'll just sit and sometimes hours not even talk to each other.
Do you envy their relationship?
I do. I'm like, Mike, what's that like? Tell me about this place called heaven.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think too about that trust, a lot of our conversations are about watching and seeing how the other person responds to the things you say.
Yeah.
You are getting affirmation from the person you're talking to constantly in all conversations. Just kind of watch a room sometime when people are having conversations. Somebody who is dominant in the group, after people will say something, you just watch their eyes quickly look over at that person to see what was their response to the thing I just said. Because they're looking for approval. They're looking to see, what does that person think of me? And a lot of times in our conversations, that's what it's about. We're getting affirmation from the other person. But when you have such deep trust with your partner, with your spouse, you trust that they love you for who you are. And you're not looking for anything. You're not looking for affirmation. It's just comfortable being together. And with chaotic schedules, and I mean, our schedule is nuts. It's insane.
Most people's are.
Most people's schedule. Yeah, like these days it's very rare that people don't have a constant schedule.
I will say having 2 extra drivers in the house has been so nice for our schedule.
Oh, I love it so much.
Because the girls are in college classes and now their volleyball conditioning and all that starting up, and it's like either you or I would have to run them absolutely everywhere. And I feel like I've got part of my life back.
I agree. The other day, it was actually kind of funny because the other day our minivan was getting brakes replaced. And so we actually had our children drop us off at our job and pick us back up.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny. I was like, my, how the tables have turned here.
It's nice, but
It's fantastic.
it's chaotic. And
It's
a lot
chaotic.
of you feel that. all the time.
Yeah, and I know that you guys are feeling that, and you're feeling exhausted sometimes. And sometimes all that you want at the end of the day is just like a warm hug from the one who's closest to us in the world, our spouse. You know, you just want to come home from a busy day of work, and you just want to have their arms wrapped around you. And sometimes, you know, you get home and you've had a long, tiring day. You don't really have the energy to tell your spouse all about your day and everything that happened. You just want their presence and warmth, and you want to feel relaxed, and you want to take some of that stress away, and that their presence can bring that. It can bring that stress relief. And there are times that silence is the most loving, comforting thing you can do for your spouse.
Yeah.
This was something that I really had to work on at the beginning of our marriage, because you would come home from work and I had been at home with the babies and toddlers for hours. So you get home, I want to have an adult conversation. I'm excited to talk to somebody who can say full sentences. And you are ready to just like decompress a little bit. So a lot of times the most loving thing that you can do is just be quiet when they get home from work. Give them some time of silence.
Well, and you brought up something that is important as well, because often couples are not in the same, you know, place at the same time as far as what they need between silence and conversation.
Okay.
And so you may have to have a conversation about this. Mm-hmm. Just like we've had to have conversations about, okay, when I first wake up in the morning, I need you to just bite on your tongue for 20 minutes and let me get a chance to catch my breath as I wake up and get going. And so this may be a conversation you need to have, like, okay, if one of you is home with the kids all day, like Lysandra was, and the other one's been at work and it's been hectic and whatever else, and you just need a few minutes as you come into the house to, like, you know, get your bearings and kind of change modes from work mode and on and all that to family mode now, you may need a couple minutes. Mm-hmm. And so having a conversation about, hey, I know, I recognize you've been home with the kids all day. I know you need some conversation. You need your backup. Like, I'm here for you. But I just need 5-10 minutes or whatever. And not to be bombarded as soon as I walk in the door. So having that conversation and both sides being understanding to what the other has gone through in the day.
Absolutely. And looking at silence as it can really be a gift. Like, sometimes we need to give our spouses the gift of silence, at least for a little while every day.
Yeah, and sometimes I need to give my spouse the gift of communication.
Yes, that is true.
And talking. So, and that kind of leads us to that other side of the coin.
We gotta flip the coin, you guys.
Because there's another kind of silence that is unhealthy, and that is the silent treatment.
Now this one I can talk about.
Yeah.
I'm good at this one.
You are good at this one. And that's the thing. It's like, okay, if Lysandra's quiet, she's either really tired or she's really ticked. Mm-hmm. It's one of those two things. So, it's kind of like when you have small children. If you've got toddlers, you understand this. Like, if it gets quiet in the house, something is majorly wrong.
That's true.
Like, you better go
search
check
for that toddler.
Check on what's going on.
Because that toddler is in your cabinet sitting with the container of chocolate chips and just eating chocolate chips hand over fist.
Or has got the permanent marker and is drawing all over everything.
Or has the baby powder and is going like...
Yep, spraying it all over. Mm-hmm. So...
We've had all those things happen.
Some silence is great. Other silence is not. Mm-hmm. And there's no situation where using silence as a weapon is justified in marriage.
Agreed.
Like, even if you need to cool off before saying something you'll regret, you should have the decency to tell your spouse that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm a little heated right now. I'm a little charged. I'm going to take just a second and, like, calm myself before I communicate.
But I'll talk to you in a minute.
Yeah.
Like, letting them know what's going on.
But don't just stop talking to them and freeze them out. You know, it's important to know what silences shouldn't feel like. It shouldn't make your partner feel like they're being ignored So,
Yeah. Silent treatments are really dangerous. I absolutely used them in the beginning of our marriage. I don't think I do that anymore, right?
no, not often.
My thing is, I don't want to, like, there's times when I can't talk about the thing, right? So, like, kids are in the car. I'm not going to bring up the thing that's made me mad, or it's not the right time, or whatever. So, I know that the best thing is to be quiet, but that might be something I need to work on, is telling you, like, I'm upset with you, and I'm going to talk to you about it later.
Yeah.
Does that help you? Do you want to know that? Or does that just feel like, now I have a cloud following
Let's just talk about it now.
Let's get this over with. What would you rather?
I would rather not want to know, because like I know if you're not talking, something's wrong anyway. So I'd rather just know what it is. Or the girls and I, will also joke about the fact that you're not a yeller. Like, you don't yell. If you're really upset, you'll talk through your teeth also.
Yes. Yeah.
So you have like this weird like serial killer smile on your face, and you're talking through your
Serial
teeth.
killer.
Like, your mouth's not opening,
Nice.
you're just talking through your teeth.
Yeah. Do the dishes.
Yeah. And her eyes get all big and like, it's like, oh boy.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. There's another kind of silence too that is unhealthy, and that is where you ignore your spouse. Your spouse asks you a question, just talks to you, and there can be a million reasons why you don't answer. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you don't have the answer. Maybe you didn't fully hear everything they said. Maybe you're engaged on something in your phone. But ignoring them is never okay. Like, it makes them feel unimportant and unheard. Make sure that if they're talking to you, you answer them, even if you say just a minute. Okay, it might be time to break the silence. It might be time to break the silence in your marriage. Now, we are talking about how important comfortable, companionable silence is, but it could be that the silence in your marriage is because you're not talking about things that should be talked about. You're leaving things out. Is there anything in your marriage that has created the silence? Is there anything in your marriage that has made it so you feel like you cannot talk to your spouse? It's time to break the silence and have that conversation, that hard conversation. We've talked about this many times on the podcast, but we're just going to do a quick reminder. When you need to break the silence and talk about something heavy, there are a few things that you want to think about. Think about your timing. When are you talking about this thing? Are they exhausted? Are the kids in the room? Do you have the in-laws over? Those are not times to have the conversation.
Definitely not.
So pick your time well. Make sure that they are ready and geared up to be able to talk about something that's important and something that's heavy. Then you're going to do it in a loving way. And we like to talk about the positive sandwich, right? So you're going to say something positive. I love you, and you are always there for the kids and for me, and I really appreciate that. But there's one thing that I need to talk to you about. You haven't mowed the lawn, even though I've asked you to many times, and I don't have the physical ability to do it. I understand, though, that you work hard every day, and I do appreciate that, but can you please mow the yard? So you're gonna have that loving, positive sandwich and talk about the difficult, heavy thing in the middle.
No, I just want a breakfast sandwich.
I can make that happen for you in just a minute.
I had one at Dominic's yesterday.
Did you? You don't usually eat when you go there.
I don't, but I did yesterday.
Did you enjoy it?
It was great.
Thomas just smiled for the first time this morning.
I know.
Talking about his breakfast sandwich from yesterday. So we do want to encourage you that if the comfortable silence is actually uncomfortable silence, then it's time to break the silence. It is time to talk about that thing that you have not been talking about.
Well, and maybe you've had this problem. You've been married for several years. You feel like you've talked about everything and there's nothing new to discuss. And that silence is the only option. So here are some ideas for conversation starters. And so we often use these on dates because, as important as communicable silence is, continuing to talk with someone with each other is just as important. And so we'll do this as a family. We do this as a couple as well, where we'll just open it up, Google whatever questions and just have a conversation. So you can do the same thing, but here's a couple. Have you been on any awful dates?
I've only dated you. And so, yeah, most of them were pretty terrible.
Yeah. So, tell me about them.
This one time, this guy, I don't know. I can't remember. I don't think any of our dates have actually been horrible.
No, that's the question though.
Yeah, you're not actually asking me.
Yeah, I'm not asking you.
You're using it as an example.
To tell. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you would talk about the awful dates and
All right. So for this episode, I just Googled conversation starters for couples. Okay, so here's some of them, and this one I found really funny. Which if you do this to help, keep some conversation in your life, you will have some good laughs.
Oh, totally.
Because some of them are pretty funny. This one is funny. Would you prefer to come back as a cat or a dog? What even is that? That's such a weird question.
No, that's an easy question to answer. It would definitely be cat. Even though I'm not a cat person, I don't want a cat.
But you are a cat.
But if I'm coming back as a cat because it's literally just like, leave me alone unless I want petted, and then leave me alone.
Yeah, feed me.
Yeah, like I can just hide in a corner somewhere. I can be around you. I can be in your presence when I want to.
Yeah.
What about you? You would have to be a dog.
A dog, yeah. I would hate being a cat.
You'd be
awful.
some sort of little yippy.
Hey, now.
Exactly. Some high-pitched, yippy, always going off dog.
Okay, here's one. Would you rather be famous or have lots of money?
First of all,
Don't those two go
famous.
hand in hand?
Yeah, because if you're famous, you can get lots of money.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me about a time when you felt your happiest. That's a really nice question.
Yeah, it was probably after I'd been gone on a trip and I came home and saw Coconut.
Okay.
Just saying, Coconut runs to the door to see me and is always happy to see me. If I leave for 10 minutes, that dog runs at me as if I'd been gone for 10 days. Mm-hmm. So
I'm going to run at you.
Okay, let's see. I mean, you run to the door naked, wagging your tail, and I'll be happy to see you too.
Okay. How about this? What would be your favorite or your dream vacation, and what would you do on your dream vacation? And we do this with our kids. It's really fun.
Yeah.
We have these. We often ask this question. And here's the interesting thing. You may have asked this question at the beginning of your marriage. That question will have a different answer now. So even if you say, like, I already know the answer to these, ask him again. People change, circumstances change. Maybe you went on that dream vacation that you had when you were in your 30s. Now you're in your 40s, and there's a new dream vacation because you already got to accomplish that first one. But you see, the whole idea is to keep conversation going. While companionable silence is important, it's also important to keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
And so when you go out on a date, you should be talking with each other. You shouldn't just be on your phone sitting at a dinner table. Like, you should be having a conversation. That will increase your intimacy. It's very, very simple for you to find any of these little conversation starters, these little questions to answer. We do this on dates a lot. And there are times when you will learn something new about your spouse that you really didn't know. We've been married for almost 21 years, and we will sometimes find something new about the other person.
Yeah.
Because of these. So when you need to break the silence, this is one suggestion of how.
So family meeting tonight, you're going to have a conversation about silence. And here's what I want you to do is I want you to rate from 1 very uncomfortable to 10 very comfortable. How comfortable or uncomfortable are you with being silent with just your spouse around? So just the two of you. We're not talking about a stranger or somebody else, some other extended family member. Just your spouse. How comfortable or uncomfortable are you? And then once you've said the number, why is that? What makes you comfortable or uncomfortable in the silence? I also want you to talk about, are there certain times where you just need silence? Mm-hmm. Like, hey, in this scenario, more often than not, I need silence when I first get up in the morning. Or, hey, once it passes 8 o'clock and I'm trying to wind down for the night, I need you not to be, like, yammering on and on in my ear.
Maybe don't say it that way.
Yeah, probably not. But, or when I first come home, I just need a couple minutes. But also have the other side of that. Hey, do you feel like you need more conversation from me, more communication from me? What scenarios do you need more communication from me? And so you're just having a conversation about the silence in your marriage and what you need from silence, but also when you need that person to break the silence and have that conversation. And so make a date also. Go out and Google some weird conversation starters, and you'll be amazed at the conversations that you'll have.
Thanks for joining us today. Please go and subscribe to the Family Meeting Podcast from your favorite podcast provider. And if you found this information helpful, please share this episode on social media and invite your friends and family to listen in with you.
To get your tickets to Relationship Refresh, which is less than 2 weeks away, go to familymeeting.org. Familymeeting.org. And hit that shop button, and you'll find, hey, it's just $25 for a couple. That's $12.50 a piece. And we're going to have a great time with that. I want to invite you to be there. You can also email us at info@familymeeting.org. And if you'd like to shoot us a text or call us, you can send a voice message at 904-257-3062, and we can answer those questions on a future episode.
And we want to invite you to join us for our next family meeting. This is going to be quite a heavy topic. We're going to talk about how to help children who are cutting themselves. This is a conversation that we had to have in our home as our girls had two friends who did not know each other, but both shared with our children that they had been cutting themselves. And so when this happened, we said, okay, this is a relevant topic. This is happening in our culture. This is happening to people. We need to talk about that. It is a tough topic, but we found that it's relevant and it's important for us to talk about that. So join us next week for that.
Thanks for joining us today for this family meeting. Have a great week, everybody. This meeting is adjourned.
Alrighty. Silence. He's giving me the silent treatment, but I'm comfortable with that.
No, I'm just comfortable being in silence with our friends here.
That's how comfortable you are with them?
Yeah.
Wow.
They're comfortable with it too. Look, we're just get locked in each other's gaze.
I think they already turned you off.
Oh, probably. They're like, oh, he's done.
Thanks for joining us this week, and we'll see you next time.